Time I start that, it's jumpy at the start. Anyway, here we are. Website 101 podcast, Lunch Bytes. We're back, all three of us. Hi Amanda, hi Sean. How are you?
All
Hello,
good,
I'm
all
fine,
good.
Thanks.
Yeah, you doing
First,
all right?
I need to apologize to everybody. Our Lunch Bites is on Thursday this week instead of the Wednesday.
Oh yeah.
It was my fault.
You're fired.
Thanks.
No,
Thanks for being accommodating.
was it? I thought it was my fault. Wasn't it? Wasn't I unavailable yesterday? Or no? I don't know.
I don't know. I was unavailable yesterday. I don't know what your story is.
The only thing I know is I was available yesterday.
Could have done it yourself.
Yeah, Amanda's done a solo one before. Maybe you should have just done it by yourself, Sean.
I don't have a lot to say, and
It was weak sauce. I don't blame you for not wanting to do it by yourself.
yeah, there. You know, when I started the podcast, I insisted that I get a guest for every episode because I didn't want to do a 10-minute monologue. And it's like
It's
that's hard
hard.
to talk to yourself for 10 minutes.
It is.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
That's one of the reasons why teaching at Seneca, and even though COVID is quote unquote over, the majority of students don't come to class. So there are many times when I will get on the subway for an hour to go up to Seneca to sit in a room all by myself to teach a class because everyone decided to just join online.
There's no
And
way
so
to
it's-
require in-person attendance.
We're working on it. They're gonna hate us, but we're working on it.
Yeah, I would insist on in-person attendance if possible. Like I used to teach, and I could not imagine teaching to an empty room. It would just, I'd want to punch myself in the face.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's bad enough sitting here at home and having the three of us talk individually. I mean, at least we're talking to each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, the students don't interact. They don't turn on cameras. They don't even turn on microphones. They don't even join with audio most of the time. They just sit there and listen.
Oh, yeah, see, you're not even getting any visual clues. Like, you're not getting to see if they're engaged or bored or a confused look on their face. You just got a black screen. That's
Yeah.
even
Or
worse
present.
than an empty
Maybe they're
classroom.
not there.
Oh, I'm sure the majority of the time they just sign in and then go fuck off and do something else. It's
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
they're looking at
frustrating.
TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and meanwhile they're banning cell phones in schools all over Ontario here, right? So is that an issue when
think
people
it's
are there in your
TDSB
class?
only.
Do they? Oh yeah, TDSB, right. Well, so
It is
far I think
TDSB.
maybe.
Yeah, and that's like elementary schools and high schools that they're banning cell phones.
Yes.
I don't know. It's happening in my kid's school. He's in grade 7.
Well, elementary
grade 7.
school.
We
I
got
think
an
they should.
email about it, and I asked my son, I said, like, hey, you're graduating this year. How do you feel about it? He's like, the teachers already were not supposed to. The teachers don't enforce it. He's like, nobody cares. He said they need to do more enforcement about all the vaping that goes on. This is at high
Yeah.
school level. I mean, elementary kids are not vaping, at least
Yeah,
as far
no.
as I know.
But I mean, it's a big problem. Like teachers are not police. Like who's going to enforce
Yeah.
that? The teachers have enough to deal with.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
and
wanna
I
dump
think
that
there's
on them
also
either.
other issues like what is a teacher going to be taking away the phone? And if they're taking
Yeah.
away a $500 phone and
500
something
plus.
happens to it, who's responsible for it?
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
if you've got especially in the higher grades, if you've got some kid who's pushing back and is like, it's my property, don't touch it, which I get, but it's then you've got a standoff. It's disrupting class.
If
It's
I was a
tough, it's
teacher, I
tricky.
wouldn't be enforcing it either.
No.
If they want to enforce it, they need to get security that you drop your phone at the door. I'm not touching it.
I agree.
So, anybody
So-
got anything relevant industry news they want to talk about?
It's not industry news, but I was at a tech conference this week.
Sounds pretty industry related to me.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not like news that I'm sharing, but it is industry related. So I think we mentioned it before. I went to FITC. It's a tech conference that they put on like a couple times over the course of the year. The big one happens in the spring, which was just what happened this week, and it's interesting. This event is typically more the creative side of tech and of industry. And while that's not typically my jam, it's not typically my cup of tea, some of it was pretty cool. Like there will be people, it's more, when I say creative, I mean, all of the speakers are well known in their industries. They're like technical directors. They're like chief creative officers, like all of these very high level. They do all of this like really great design for like big products, for big campaigns, for all of these other things. But the majority of the talks were either AI and how it was a balance between either AI is taking all of the fun creative parts or how you can work with AI to continue doing your fun creative part. It was a little AI'd out.
I think it's doing both.
I think it's doing both. It depends on your frame set, but also a lot of these like very established business, but like creative, they were talking about their side passions. So more of like these creative art projects that they have been a part of and how they can take the technology that they've learned in their business side and apply it to their like sort of after hours passion. There was one guy whose entire talk was talking about all of these technical projects that he's done for Burning Man.
Oh,
So for those who may not know, Burning Man it happens annually in this desert in northern Nevada, and it's like I think like a week-long festival of art, and it's been happening for decades. But it's like when you see pictures of it, it's like you picture the hippies, and you picture the free love, and you picture drugs, and you picture like really weird, avant-garde, out there art. And he had like some statistics that it's I think like 30,000 people come to Burning Man every year. They take like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, I don't like multiple weeks before the actual event to like set up the city where people are going to live for a week. And so some people just come to appreciate and enjoy. There's music, there's culture, there's art, and some people come to like show off the stuff that they've done. So one of the art projects he was talking about was he set up like a roller poster that they affixed to the front of porta potties. And then there were sensors in the porta potty, and an Arduino would roll the poster. So you could tell if somebody was in the porta potty, if they were sitting or if they were standing. And then when they left, it would like go back. It would go back to the default. Well, I mean, it's not showing them, but it's like showing some stock photography of, and it was like it's interactive, it's technology, it's porta potties. It's porta potties are gross and stupid, and nobody wants to use them. And it ended up being such like a big popular site that one night a rave set up just outside because hey, there's bathrooms here anyway. Let's just start playing music.
Wow.
But yeah, so I mean, some of it was really interesting, and then some of it was a little bit out of touch. Like this guy was taught, and so that was just 1 year. And so he described projects that he did other years and the effort that they went into it. And he ended up with a team of like 50 volunteers and the prototyping that they do and the testing and the leading up to it and some of the rules that happen around Burning Man. And then at one point he throws in, and then for this project and to do a thing, I had to go out and buy a forklift. And it's like,
I had to buy a forklift.
Bought a forklift. Like,
that's oddly specific.
Yeah, but it's like, obviously he's like very high up in whatever business he works at. And he's got this kind of disposable income that he can, buy a forklift, but then also take off months at a time to go and set up and be a part of Burning Man. So some of it was a little out of touch. Some of it was definitely not my scene or my lifestyle, but it was interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I remember being at a conference one time where it was a web conference, I forget which one. This was years ago, but this guy was talking about. He had a presentation that looked interesting, and when he gets talking, he shows us this this device that he created and sold to the military, which was basically, I remember thinking it's basically the top of a Ziploc bag. You know, a Ziploc bag, you know, you do that thing and it sort of, if you look close, it's a round thing that fits into a groove. Yeah. He basically made a bigger version of that and sold it to the military, made a lot of money. And he introduced himself as an inventor. I'm an inventor. Because he made this one thing. And it was the worst talk I have ever heard. It was completely out of touch. He passed around the invention that he made. Nothing to do with web. It's just something he did. Oh, it was so stupid.
That's weird.
I'll never forget that talk.
The bigger question to ask is, why did the conference organizers approve his presentation? Was he a sponsor?
No, but they certainly heard from me afterwards because they passed around those cards. You know, what do you think? The review. And man, I wrote a diatribe about that guy.
Well, somebody made
Don't waste my time after I spend all this money and effort to come to your conference.
Yeah.
Why am I watching some guy talk about completely irrelevant garbage?
One of the speakers made a joke about how they had rewritten their speech so many times that obviously the conference organizers don't like, because you submit your title because they have to print the stuff in advance, but then you basically have carte blanche. You could actually end up talking about something completely different. We have a comment. It's a valuable marketing data, going back talking about the porta potties. Do you put your ad on the inside of the door or above the seat?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe I'm not understanding what that is. You see it when you're in it, or when you're looking at the outside?
This art project, it was all on the outside. So you could you didn't have to get super close and like look at the little slidey thing to see if somebody was in there. The picture on the front would show you, you know, and so when somebody goes in, it shows them standing, and then when they sit down to do the big job, it shows a picture of somebody sitting, and then when they stand up to like wash their hands, it shows somebody standing. So in that way, you can also kind of see like how close they are to being done. And then when they leave, it rolls back to like the default image, and you know that it's available.
I still stand by the thing of like too much information. Just put occupied. That's all you need. You don't need to know if the person's sitting down or standing up or whatever.
No, I get it, but they were doing
I would
it to
not
be like,
use those toilets.
But they were doing it to be interactive, and they were doing it. It's like I thought it was kind of a neat idea.
Okay, maybe I'm just old. No, just no. Get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Maybe. Guys, I've got to check on something. I'll be right back. Please carry on.
Okay.
I'll just go into my old man diatribe now.
No, I don't want to hear it. Okay, so then here's another art project that he talked about that maybe you could be more on board with. So he constructed this thing that was a bunch of different segments. So basically, picture on wheels, almost like a segment of a fence, and one side was lit up, and instead of the fence wire, I forget what it's called, it was like fabric. It was draped fabric. And so we had like a whole bunch of these, like 20, 30 of them all connected to each other. So it ended up being, he said it was like 100 yards long. And so what they would do is they would like walk, and I could imagine it was visually beautiful, like walking through the desert at night, having like this 100-meter long, for our Canadian viewers, it's pretty close, like trailing along behind you. And he said that the goal of it was immediacy. Because too often people would be like, oh, we're going to go see this concert tonight. We're going to see it tonight. Tonight we're going to do this thing. Tonight we're going to go this place. Tonight. Whereas as you're walking to whatever event that you're going to, if you're stuck in the middle of this 100-meter long art project, walking past in front of you, it's like you're suddenly brought back to the immediate, brought back to right now. You need to make a
Wow.
decision. Are you going to like wait for it to go by? Are you going to try to go around it? Sometimes groups would like split up and like some would go left and some would go right and they wouldn't end up seeing each other for 2 days because they just would end up seeing like different things in this encampment. So, I mean, I liked the philosophy that he had working with that it was like bringing people back to like to the present, to right now.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was, I mean,
That's
it was
pretty
kind of
cool.
cool. Yeah. And,
Did you,
and they also, oh,
No, you go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was also going to say, so FITC, it was this 2-day conference. They had a bunch of talks. They had like an opening night event. They had a closing, like a wrap party. On both of the days, they had like networking lunches set up that you could like enroll for. I went to one of the networking lunches and met a couple of new people. It's, really cool, like to just sort of be sitting in the audience and notice somebody sitting beside you and just being like, hey, like what do you do? Like, what industry are you in? And just start randomly talking about tech, and sometimes it'd be cool conversations. Sometimes they'd be duds, but sometimes it'd be kind of cool conversations and you'd, connect on LinkedIn or, exchange emails or whatever. It was good.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is, did you speak to anybody, meet anybody? But there you go. That sounds good. And you had students there, apparently, perhaps? Or no?
Yes, there were many former students there. And it's hard. You get to a certain age and somebody is like, hey, Amanda. And it takes me a couple of minutes to like cycle through my Rolodex to be like, how do I know this person again? And then especially because so last semester, there were over 100 students that I was teaching.
Yeah.
But the majority of them were at home, were only online, never turned on their camera. So I don't know what they look like. So now when people come up and are like, hey, Amanda, it's like I also have to go through like, what is the problem based on age, based on other things? It's like, what is the probability that this person might be a student who has heard me talking at them for the last 4 months?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
It feels like maybe you should give your students a different name to refer to you by, so that when you meet that person, it's, oh, that's how you know me.
Maybe, except that I wouldn't be used to it. I would just like blindly keep walking past the person.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I feel like that
that's
would
true.
be even more rude.
That's true.
Sorry, guys.
You're back.
That's all right. Welcome back.
Yeah, I lost the internet, so
We
I'm
all have
glad you
slow
caught
internet
up.
connections today.
No, I think we do.
Sean, didn't you have something you were going to bring up today, or no? Am I misremembering that?
oh, I did say
You know
that
what?
I was going to mention something, but it's really tiny. I have a potential rescue client, so I'm just working with them right now. They sent off a quote yesterday. Their site is running Craft 2.
Ooh,
Wow. I've
And
never
they're-
used Craft 2.
Well, I've got a site that's been running since Craft 1. So,
Oh, yeah.
for
One site.
those who don't know, Craft is the content management system that we all
Yes.
like using a lot. And in the last month, it released version 5.
right.
Yeah.
So they're using Craft 2 and they're looking for help because their host said, hey, you need to get on a supported version of PHP soon. So I sent off a quote and I looked and Craft 2 was released in 2016 or something, or 2015. So
I bet.
it's like-
Is it running? Is it PHP 5? Is it that old?
It's running on PHP 7.0.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
it's still like end of life PHP.
Yeah.
Because right now I think PHP 8.0 is end of life.
Not end of life, but they're trying to get people. I think it's like 8.2 is now the recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Anyways,
Anyway.
it's old, and I
Yeah.
sent a proposal. I gave them two options: rebuild from the ground up, which is my preferred option, but it's more expensive because it would also involve rebuilding the front end of the site, keeping the same design. And the guy that I talked to also wants it. You just have to get the stakeholders on board. And the other option is upgrading, and it's like, yeah, it's not going to be cheap because I got to go from 2 to 3, which is complicated, 3 to 4, which
Yeah.
is complicated, and 4 to
Yeah.
5, which is not as complicated. But it's there's a lot of steps with a
Yeah.
lot of potential. Hey, I got to go in and make sure all the templates are working. Like, but it just be the only real issue with rebuilding in this case is exporting all the data because they got a lot of data. So
Yeah,
it's,
it's a big site.
creating the export template, running it through FeedMe, which will import it into Craft and testing. Overall, the site is simple, but regardless of either option, it's a lot of work.
Well, yeah, because it's not just upgrading Craft, but it's also upgrading like the version of PHP. And it's, I just went through something where the staging and the production server were on different versions of MySQL. And it ended up throwing a big monkey wrench in a thing. And it's like,
Did you get that resolved? I saw you post about it.
I did last night. Yeah, it finally,
Oh, nice.
I won in the end. That's what matters.
Nice.
Yeah, and then,
So-
then I have another client that I've been working with for about 6 or 8 months now, and we're going to be moving from Craft 3 to Craft 4, and also server migration for the same reasons. And then a phase 2 will be Craft 4 to 5, but we just need to get them on Craft 4 now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm encountering a problem with Craft right now in that. So for those who don't know, Craft now released this thing where, they'll let you try the software, but if you don't have a valid license, if you haven't purchased a license, you can only use it on your local install or on a staging server. If it's on a live production server, public facing, what happens is you get this takeover screen every day once when you log
the
in the
back end.
control panel. In
Yeah.
the back end, yeah, not the front end. But when you're trying to modify stuff, it says, hey, you need a new license. And then wait this many seconds before you can log in. And it's longer and longer every day. Well, my staging server has the way they determine, apparently, I spoke to them, and this is all in their documentation, I guess. The way they determine whether or not it's a valid, use of the free version is if certain words are in the URL, like staging or testing or dev or something like that. I have the word staging in my staging environment that I use for my clients, but it's not its own segment of the
Subdomain?
URL. It's my company's name, staging, all one word. So then that way, what I do is I have the client name dot my company staging dot ca or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not recognized. So every day I log in and it's like, now we're up to like 5 hours of seconds I got to wait.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that
So irritating.
I ran into that on one of my personal sites that I was running some of the plugins. I hadn't paid for the upgrade. I just updated them. I didn't realize you could update without paying. I just did it.
Yeah.
And it got really annoying once it got to like 30 minutes. I was like, oh, screw this. And I just paid for it.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's the idea, right?
Yeah. Now,
Mike-
if I'm
Mike,
running a
how come-
staging site, I use a domain that does not include any word like staging in it, but it's only for staging sites. So I'm going to have the same problem Mike does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, how come your client doesn't just pay for the license?
Well, no. Here's I was going to get to that. So here's the deal: we're going to be paying for the license, but part of, and this happens with a lot of my clients when I do a new build. Part of the build that they want me to do is we don't want our hosting. We want to move to a new host. Can you hook us up with a new host? We're tired of paying this clown or whatever it is. So we're going to be getting a new hosting environment, but there's no point in paying for the hosting when the site is not ready to launch yet. It's potentially sometimes months away. So I don't want to say, okay, now you're paying 60 some bucks a month for hosting, but it's not going to be needed until the site launches. That's why I've always used my own DigitalOcean droplet for staging, right? Normally when they're not moving hosts, I just set up a subdomain on theirs that's staging dot in the name of the website, and it
Yeah.
works fine.
That's
But
exactly
in
what I
these
do.
cases where we're going to be moving to a new host,
I get
but
all
haven't
of that,
yet,
but
yeah.
pay for the license.
But the license is the same thing. Why pay for a license when it's not a public site yet?
Yeah, and
Because
and
they're
the
going to
license
lose that
says
many
you-
months.
The license says you
You know what I
don't
mean?
have
I
to pay
understand.
for it
I-
until it's on a production site. And The other thing
I
is,
understand.
it's not just the craft site. If you have unlicensed plugins, you get the
No, I
the
know.
same screen, because I had it with unlicensed plugins.
Yeah, like it's just like, I know that I'm very much of the opinion that the cost of the license, that's why I use Craft. The cost of it is whatever it is, $400 or 300 or something. It's well worth it, and it's not usually an issue for my clients. But still, the idea of like, let's buy it now. The site will be online 3 months from now. You're going to lose that 3 months.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and the plugins too. Yeah, exactly. You end up spending over $500 sometimes. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's the issue. It's
Yeah, I think there should be a better way to determine if it's an actual staging domain. And I realize they can't just say, oh, it depends on what you put in your .env variable, because then you could just put staging on your
Right.
production
You
site.
game it.
It'd be easy to
Yeah.
game the system.
I
Yeah.
wonder if they should, because we all use that knock knock plugin. I wonder if they should try to like strike up some deal with them. That like if
Yeah.
knock knock is the first thing that you see, then it's probably not a public site.
Actually,
Right.
that would be a great way to do it as well. Like, hey, is Knock Knock running on this environment? Then it's not public.
or maybe Craft should just build a knock knock like functionality in that's enforced if it's not public. You have to have your public facing people, like your client, knock into the front end unless it's production. How would they know
Yeah,
that?
so
I don't know.
if your
I don't know.
.env environment says production, Knock Knock is not running. If it isn't, then the only way to avoid Knock Knock is to be working locally or with environment equals production.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
you can
something like that.
can actually whitelist IP addresses. But anyway, Josh from Verb, if you're listening, if you're watching, go talk to Kraft.
Fix
Go hit up
this
Brandon.
problem.
Yeah, between the two of you, you're both so smart. Figure it out.
Yes. Do some CMS love
Yeah.
together.
I actually support this thing that like I've never complained about the takeover screen. I think it's fine. They're entitled to make sure they make money, and it's all great. It's just that I didn't expect to encounter. I have a legitimate staging environment. It's just not
Yeah.
named the way they expect, so it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and then I wonder, like, so how can you hack it? Like, how are they like? Is it a record in the database that says how many days it's been, and so therefore it's incrementing
Well-
the count? Is it a cookie in the browser? Like, there's got to be something that you can
Well-
clear out.
Does it
According to
call
the
home?
docs, it calls home. That's what it says. It calls Pixel and Tonic and makes some connection there, and that's where the determination occurs.
What
So,
happens
yeah.
if Pixel and Tonic is down for whatever reason, like they forget to renew their domain or their hosting?
And I guess I'll be able to get in.
Or you just won't.
I wonder if you could request that they add your domain as an exception.
Well, I thought about that, but I don't want to be that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'll hurry up and get the hosting and do all that stuff Amanda just said and just move forward with it.
Well, speaking
Save the hassle.
of being down, I saw on Reddit this morning that apparently yesterday a very well-known CDN was down. What is it like? I forget what it was called. JS Netler. Well, anyway, we've all seen something where it's like CDN dot this domain name like / Bootstrap.
Yeah.
Like apparently yesterday, a lot of Bootstrap just was not working. Because instead of hosting the CSS and the JavaScript files on your own server, some people will use these like CDNs where the files are hosted somewhere else. It's better for caching reasons and it's better for all these other reasons. But if that domain ever goes down, apparently what happened was somebody thinks that when they were renewing the SSL certificate, they like put in the wrong date. So if you do like, HTTPS, get me this JavaScript file. If the security certificate expired in like 2020, which apparently was the typo, you're not going to get that JavaScript file.
Yeah, that happened to me one time with Alpine JS. I used
yeah?
the CDN, and it was the one they had on their homepage, like the one that they sort of recommend. It was offline for a day or two, and
Yeah.
I ended up switching to a different CDN or whatever, but I'm sure
Yeah,
Caleb
I
was
still
like
use
tearing his
I
hair
still
out
use
that day.
CDN links from time to time. Mostly when I'm building out something and I'm not sure if this is my final approach, I'll just use the CDN link. Then assuming I remember, then I'll go back and make sure that
Yeah.
it's hooked up locally using NPM or whatever.
Yeah.
Got to rely on a lot of stuff that other
Yeah.
people
It's
make.
so easy to break the internet these days.
Too many moving
Yeah.
parts.
Yeah.
No doubt. Grumpy. We're grumpy developers. That's our job. Lots to
No
complain
wonder
about.
we are with all the bullshit we have to deal with.
I'm a
that's
hungry
right.
developer.
Should we wrap it up there? Speaking of which, it's
Yes. Good segue, Sean.
It's lunch
Yeah.
bites. I'm gonna go have a bite of lunch.
noon. Okay, bye everybody.
All right. I think we finished.